Cool. So, well, welcome to the show. You are the first ever VTuber on the show, and so you get to break new grounds with that one. Give us a little introduction about yourself and your channel and so on.
Okay. Well, hi. My name is xDivZero. My story is that I divided by zero and got uploaded into the internet through the Wi-Fi, and here I am to play games, do art, and chill with you.
Amazing. So, what was your kind of reasoning and motivation behind going down the VTuber route rather than the traditional?
Well, I have an old gaming friend who happens to be a very large indie VTuber right now, and she inspired me to just do VTubing. Also, I've always been into games and like learning things. And actually, back in high school, I wanted to be an environmental design for video games. Okay. So I've always had like a interest in 3D modeling and that sort of thing. So this just kind of worked out that way.
Yeah, amazing. And do you design your own characters? What's the word for it? Actually, there's an expression.
Characters is fine. We can just refer to it as characters. Sometimes there's personas, that sort of thing as well. I tend to have myself baked into my lore, so I am more of myself than a caricature. Okay. But there are definitely some who definitely have characters.
Yeah, but like, if you were to, would you call it your avatar or the name for the visuals? Do you have is there a specific kind of terminology for that?
Just kind of an avatar, I guess. Yeah. There's no like official English kind of translation for it. Just like a character, an avatar, or a model.
Yeah. Awesome. So you said, obviously, that's one of the things I really wanted to get into. You said you're kind of like baked into your character's lore quite a lot.
Yes.
What, like, within the VTuber community, there's a varying degree of that, and I remember us speaking about that in chat one time. Like, whether or not a person is a persona there, or whether they are fully themselves, or a little bit of both. So, like, right. What was the decision for you to go down that kind of almost autobiographical character?
Well, I actually created my character to fit my username, and my username was a placeholder for a potential rebranding when I was more into like professional gaming. So I had a pretty generic username that I was gaming under, and then I was like, well, I need a username that's more related to me and personal. That's how I came up with xDivZero. Is it's a combination of like math fun and computer programming and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So then I took that and then made that my lore.
Okay.
Some people, however, admire some of the more famous like VTubers in Japan, because VTubing is at its core a very Japanese kind of hobby and passion.
Yeah.
And they have more anime characters. So there's like a dog girl, or just sort of fun anime character personas and personalities that way.
Yeah.
So then some people have a more character driven sort of thing.
And they would sort of take on the characteristics of that of the persona of the actual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they can essentially play a character for hours on end.
So for yourself, you obviously have decided to kind of make it more you. So would you say that who you are on stream and is I mean, obviously all of us who we are on stream, they're close facsimiles. Yeah. It's like I don't maybe talk in the exact same tone as voice, when I'm just walking around the house and so on and so forth. But is it kind of mostly just being yourself for you?
It's so interesting story about me is actually, I think that happens with most streamers or VTubers, is I have this idea going in of what kind of character I want to play, what kind of character I want to be. But slowly I've put more and more of myself into it as I've settled in. So it's a better version of myself. So I try to be positive, kind of more polished version of me. So not necessarily. So I guess kind of like the difference between me with a telephone voice versus just me.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. So I would say similar. Only I would, if I was actually on a telephone voice, it'd probably be slightly more well spoken than how I normally do speak. So, did you ever do any streaming or anything just as you before the character?
No, I've always been around streaming. Well, actually, that's a lie. I streamed, I think, on 3 different occasions, twice on Justin.tv, and then once on Twitch TV.
Was that with cam or was that just without?
Justin.tv had camera, but like that was potato quality, so you couldn't even really tell it was me. So it was just like a mess of pixels.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And has there been any sort of difference for you? And obviously you've only got those sort of 3 experiences to go off, but any kind of differences for you in terms of now that you are xDivZero?
It's slightly, I mean, it's interesting because I've always, since I grew up in gaming communities, I've always gone by a pseudonym or a gaming tag. So like if you call me any of those in real life, any of my other names, I'll definitely answer right away. So it's kind of second nature to be called by something different, like to have an online persona. But for some people who aren't used to that sort of thing, it's very disorienting and kind of a little bit of an imposter syndrome that happens. But the general rules of VTubing is you're your character and you're not supposed to be, I guess, hint that you're human for the sake of immersion, so that you are this real life character.
Yeah.
The English community has kind of diverged from that a little bit. There's actually a growing gap, an increasing gap between the Japanese community and then the English VTubing community.
Okay. So what in the sort of Japanese VTubing community, it is that immersion that you were talking about?
Yes.
It's almost expected.
Yes. It's kind of a digital idol culture. So the idol culture is this like unobtainable, everyday, like, oh, I could probably date that person if they were real, but not. It's like this suspension of disbelief of this is a real character that I've connected to, and they're obtainable yet unobtainable. And that kind of is a little bit lost in the English VTubing community. Not quite sure why, but also like this is an outgrowth or side effect of just a niche hobby going mainstream.
Yeah. I mean, how long has VTubing been sort of recognized in the Japanese community?
Oh, years. So
because it's a reasonably emerging thing in the Western world.
Yeah, because if you've known of like Hatsune Miku, the teal pigtails from Japan.
No.
She sings songs.
My knowledge of VTubing is non-existent. I think I know the one person that I introduced you to, which is Hattus, and that was someone I was on a talk show with. But my knowledge of VTubing is kind of non-existent. And to be fair, like when it sort of first started gaining prominence, I guess, over here, like there was that kind of that whole what is this, like what what is
right
is what is going, is that the person that you've just mentioned that you've just brought?
Yes, this is a fan art of her, but yeah, so it's long pigtails, and she's a completely digital being. They actually had a holographic concert around the world for her. So she's just there's someone who's made voice sounds in different syllables and such, but she's an idol where people use those voice clips as an instrument, and they put it together to have a completely digital song. So she doesn't exist, but there are many songs that she has. There's albums and concerts and such.
So is there not an artist like performing her voice?
There's one human who's done a voice bank, but that's about it. It's like a digital piano, so that people have, like, there's a person who's made the little snippets the notes, and then people put that together, and then it sings.
So basically, they've got a very advanced text-to-speech.
Yes. The TLDR of it, yeah.
And this was kind of, there's been one time that, and it wasn't on my stream, it was on Mounty's stream, that we were discussing VTubers, and it was at the time. And I suppose my concern of it was like, well, okay, what happens if a corporation controls a VTuber? Do you know what I mean? It's like
funny you mentioned that. Is pretty much the rise of the indie VTuber scene is just recent. Is it's usually a corporate produced sort of shtick, because they are run like idols. And idol culture over there is very corporate and metered and such. But with the accessibility of like the programs and then the artists, is it's become less corporate. There's also kind of there's just VTubing groups and personalities and kind of like little clubs that are going on now, both in Japanese and in the English VTubing scene. Yeah, but it's based on a very, very corporate structure, which is actually causing issues in the English VTubing scene as well, because the expectation and the bar is set high for, a corporate level of production. Yet here we are in our bedrooms or, just huddled next to our routers, being 3D VTubers and trying to mimic the corporate, atmosphere.
Yeah, well, that was kind of exactly the point. Like that, again, my knowledge is super limited, but that was kind of the point I was making, was the fact that I hate the whole X and Y Z is stealing our views, like it's
oh yeah,
but like this whole thing of like, okay, if there is a limited amount of attention, and if a corporation has the ability to pump a lot of promotion into their VTuber, and in fact if they get competitive about it, it would be very, not easy is not the right word, but it'd be very easy to kind of like price out of the market people. And it's like, if we look at kind of within general streaming, really, it's like the production values are always kind of, people are trying to bump them up and bump them up and bump them up. But then when it comes to like VTubing, it's like, okay, well, yes, the corporation's now gone into full-on 3D hologram modeling, and
yep.
And it's like, I imagine the kind of, there's the same within indie communities of like, okay, here's how to make $100 camera look like $1,000 camera using lighting or whatever. But it's like, okay, the level that sort of corporate led VTuber could have, thousands of human hours going into every single kind of presentation that they happen to do, or of every single stream or live global concert.
Well, that's actually somewhat of there's a little bit of a side issue in the VTubing community regarding, I guess, startup costs. Is there are certain studios that produce the art, and then they also have to rig it so that it matches up with, motion capture. And that generally can range from like $500 to $1,200, all said and done, the whole thing. But 3D is, you can do it yourself for free, and you can do it yourself, or you can get a model for as cheap as like $50 to have it look super good. And all you need is a potato webcam and a mic, essentially, and you're good to go. But on the upper ends there's people who do have full VR tracking, hands and body and such. And then they use like the iPhone, which has an AR kit, so it has like Face ID going on.
Oh, right.
As well. So it ranges from free to like $1,200 to $500 or $5,000, that sort of thing.
In terms of kind of like the communities and the kind of followage and viewership of VTubers, does it tend to be like that as the quality goes up, the viewers go up, or does it tend to be more so like people do get it, like they follow the person that they like?
It's a little bit of both, but because it is like the initial niche hobby started out with 2D, is more people within the community are attracted to the 2D art style and the 2D avatar style. But realistically, is that really shouldn't matter. Is a well-produced model is a well-produced model, and then content keeps people staying. So if your content is bad and you're boring, doesn't matter how fancy of a model you have, is you're still gonna not have viewers.
Yeah. Yeah, we had someone come in earlier in the stream actually and talk about the fact that they like to actually watch VTubers because they said they found that they actually create a more welcoming community and an easy, because of things like, okay, the character has been defined, which is something that I guess, humans, we don't necessarily sit there and go, well, what is my character, like what are my attributes, what are my values, right. Whereas within the VTuber world, it's a little bit more expected to kind of know and even be able to maybe read what that character's kind of values are and stuff in a bio and such. Is that something that you've seen within the community?
Yeah, it's easier to categorize yourself into a trope this way, as opposed to you kind of reduce yourself down to fit in one general trope, but which you can't necessarily do with being a real life human, because humans, you expect unpredictability and that sort of thing. But a trope is familiar, it's a condensed version.
What are some of the kind of strengths and some of the drawbacks of that in your eyes?
Strengths is it's easy to find a personality that you'll generally like. So you have an idea of, oh, hey, I want a high energy, fun, goofy person, so I'm going to go over here. Or I want a very low key chill, so I'm going to go over here. Or I want someone who has more of a big sister vibe, so who is more of, kind of supportive and watching over you, that sort of thing. Or there's just straight up people who are chaos incarnate. So it's kind of a general, I know what to expect kind of in this realm. And then you can go from there. You can just determine which personality within that flavor you want. Yeah.
What about a weakness of using a trope rather than, the broad spectrum of a real human?
A huge weakness is you're kind of boxed in. It's fun when you act out of character, oh, this person said a swear word, tee-hee. But at the same time, is if you're normally more crude than what your character would let on, is it can be a little bit limiting. Or there are some, for example, who, Foxy Joel he's a bombastic, loud person who uses a small porcelain doll avatar. So some of it is just completely throwing the trope right out the window. So it's kind of interesting because you can be the trope or you can throw the trope out of the window. There's not necessarily too much in between in regarding VTubing. However, that's kind of where streaming comes in, is where people are more of themselves and not necessarily fitting into a box of a trope.
Okay, so what, you obviously mentioned that's kind of streaming, given that more kind of on all the time. Within the VTuber community, is it common to kind of make episodes or videos, YouTube stuff as well, or is it primarily stream?
Right now it's primarily streaming. Most of our the main, I guess, standard currently is collaborations with other VTubers or other streamers. So talking Among Us games, or let's just get together, chat, and draw while on stream. So it's a very kind of social standard in that. But also you can upload your clips. There's a lot of artistic people, so they do covers, vocal covers or musical covers. There's a lot of artists who produce art. For example, I never thought I'd produce art, but it's actually part of my content now. There are people who do YouTube skits, or there are some actually YouTube only VTubers, which is where the Japanese originally started, the Japanese culture started, was on Tube is for YouTube, so VTubing. So then they have short episodes over there, that sort of thing. There's actually a push now into TikTok, so there's a lot of VTubers on TikTok. Okay. So that's also a kind of a side note regarding the corporate stuff, is there's social media managers. So all you have to do is produce the content and they edit it and upload it for you. But with the indie scene is, you're kind of having to wear all of those hats at once.
Yeah. I know that one. Although if my mod Lydia happens to be lurking about right now, she's like, "What are you talking about? I cut up all your stuff now." But she finds the nice little 1 minute highlights for me. And then I convert them for TikTok. But yeah, up until a month ago, or about 6 weeks ago, when she started doing that, it was just like everything. I've got it. And it was only kind of when I did a 26-hour stream with 26 guests.
Oh wow!
That I was like this, and everyone was like, "Are you going to put highlights of this up?" And I'm like, "No," because that'd involve going through all of it. But yeah, but it's like that thing. Like I don't know. Do you follow Gary Vee at all?
Gary Vee.
Yeah, he's a marketing guy. He's pretty big on social media and stuff. Runs a company called VaynerMedia, but he's always like, you've got to put 6 billion bits of content all over the place, and he's like, and the thing is, again, I know like before that he did a lot of it himself, but now he has like, I think there's a team of 7 or 9 people or something that are literally, like he's got 2 videographers that follow him around throughout the course of the day. Like they're taking clips from every. I was like, honestly, if like the most annoying thing is that half the good stuff I say is when no one's actually bloody filming it, obviously. And I'm like, I need to remember and say that later. But then when I try and say it later, it's not the same. And it's just, that was poo. But yeah, it is. I can imagine like just trying to get all those things onto all the platforms, and how you feel that drive with, if I'm not there, then I'm missing an opportunity. Especially with TikTok at the minute, everyone goes on about TikTok and how it's massively inflated numbers. but
yes.
But yeah, like my best video on TikTok, the only one to break the 1,000 view mark, was me opening my Easter egg. High quality content. It's exactly what I was going for, It's like everything else sits at like 160, and then this goes and gets like 2,500 of me opening an Easter egg. It's like, well, there you go. I just need it to be Easter every day, don't I? People love things being unboxed, I guess.
That, and also people love like a genuine human reaction. So like a perfectly cut scream, or like an actual surprise of, oh my God, did that just happen? That sort of thing is, you can't really manufacture those very easily.
Well, that's why the one that I've thought of all my TikTok content, the one that I thought that would actually do the absolute best is Mounty, who you've probably seen in my stream before. He's my stream wife, and I've got a slight obsession with the color purple. And he did something on his. We were having a Zoom call on stream, and he did something that turned his face purple on stream, and as a result, I was like, I full on had one of those unfakeable reactions to it, and I was like, I didn't think I could love him anymore, and I genuinely thought, I'm like, that's it. That's the clip right there. That's the clip. And no, like you just know there's no depicting or predicting which ones are actually going to do that well. So do you spend time consuming other VTubers' content as well?
I try my best to, but at my current level of real life adulting and the quest to kind of improve my stream that leaves me little time.
Yeah.
So like my hobby has become my stream, and my stream content has become my hobby. Because since my content is making my model, I'm constantly watching tutorials on Blender or Vroid, or talking creator discords, or trying to network that way. And so I don't have time for, I guess, my hobbies outside of that.
Yeah.
But before that, I was since VTubing is kind of a niche hobby, most of my audience is other VTubers.
Yeah.
So that kind of throws a lot of conventional social media knowledge and networking knowledge out with the bathwater, because my main viewership is my community. So I have to market myself, get myself exposed to my main community.
Yeah.
Which I mentioned this briefly before, is that I'd like to break out of
Yeah,
of the
this was
VTubing
one of the
community.
points I did want to bring up actually. Before we go into that, and which hopefully my brain will remind me to. If my brain doesn't, remind me to go back there.
All right, all
What I
right.
wanted to ask is, do you ever spend much time watching non VTube streamers?
I used to, but not much anymore. Because I used to watch my friends stream their IRL, so I was really supportive of their stream. I still am, but I try my best to lurk when they're streaming to give them extra view,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But I'm not as hanging on their every word as I used to be.
No, where this was leading really was to do with I'm obviously my big fascination is human behavior basically. The I'm talking not more so about the audience now and the people in chat. Would you say on overall people in chat interact differently with IRL people and VTubers?
Yes, because there's that kind of suspension of disbelief, but also a carryover from the VTubing, like Japanese VTubing community is you are an idol, you are somewhat on a pedestal comparatively.
Right.
So people, can be gross, but there's it's very less likely that that's actually going to be the case compared to when, well, this is a different aside, is like, since I've always been in the gaming communities, circa 2005, I was in the Counter-Strike community. So I've seen pretty much the worst of it, and then I guess some of the best of it in this community. So the standards also between, Japanese cordial interaction versus the gung-ho kind of EN VTubing is also quite different. So like some of the casualty of the EN VTubing would not be appreciated necessarily on the Japanese sort of side of things.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's go back to that and to the point about like within the community, like what is so obviously you're in a sort of similar way, your audience and your competition are, I hate the word competition, like, because I mean, and I know you said before there's a lot of collaboration, because I always say collaboration over competition, but your audience and your competition are almost the same. The Venn diagram, it's the Venn diagram of that is a circle. It's like, do you find that the majority of audiences within VTuber communities, or particularly yours, is over VTubers?
Yeah, actually, some of my biggest fans are now VTubers. So like we gravitated to each other because we had a common interest or personality type, but now they're VTubing by themselves. So our competition is each other, but it's also a fun hobby. So it's like this like nebulous kind of weirdness going on of a viewer base versus peers versus
In terms of like the collaborations and stuff that's there, do people like when two of their favorite VTubers come together, do like people just lose their minds?
Yeah, especially there's a large collaboration recently with the largest group of indie VTubers in the West here, and the Japanese VTubers. So HoloLive is the main and kind of original VTubing company over in Japan, and then VShojo is the largest indie VTuber community here in the West, and they did collaboration for an Among Us just last week, and that was, people were losing their minds. Also, one of the members of the VShojo group did a concert with like a digital concert with one of the original VTubers, and that was really neat. So that there's like a bunch of crossovers and collaborations and people losing their minds, and they like sold tickets to the concert, and it like sold really well, and there's merch and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's people do lose their minds and are extremely excited when that happens.
I suppose like going to like an anime background and stuff, it'd be like two people from two different laws that you love like coming together on the same show. It's like I don't know, my knowledge again of Avatar, of Avatar. I was going to say Dragon Ball is like, it's literally it. Like and that's not Avatar. I was going to say, if you got, like, I don't even know the guy from Avatar called. Is he called Avatar? The Last Airbender dude.
Aang. He's called Aang.
I'll go with Naruto because I know it. Like if you had like Naruto and Goku, like, you know, doing a team up, basically, people are lose. And someone in chat's probably going to say, someone in chat's going to say, it's already happened, and I'm going to be like, I don't know. But yeah, I suppose you've got. It is almost like. I'm trying to think of how to word this question, because obviously with IRL streamers, it's like, well, we accept the fact that they exist in the same world. Whereas with VTubers, it's like, okay, do you have kind of like your own world as well as your own character?
The world itself is, I guess, the VTubing community. So we all have our own lore, but we all exist in the same world, which is like kind of this digital online abstract world. So we all know each other exists, even if our lore is like, oh, here's someone, a reincarnated hero from a video game, or someone who's like, oh yes, I'm a sexy demon in hell. Is like, we can all collaborate. Like, we all know that each other exists, and we all have our like perception of other people. I have a VTubing friend who's a vampire queen who sucks people's souls in with her right eye, and it's always covered, right? So like, we can collaborate, and she's not going to suck my soul in, but like she can always threaten that. Yes. So like, you know, that sort of thing is, it's kind of like your lore is still kind of built in, but we are all existing in the same digital space, and that doesn't break immersion. Yeah,
kind of a little bit like in Ready Player One, where the Oasis has got character avatars from just everywhere. Well, everything Steven Spielberg. but yeah, and they all now suddenly exist within this one place. That makes it okay that they all exist at the same time. Awesome. What are some of the struggles that you think are kind of particular to being a VTuber?
Imposter syndrome on steroids, and then also having to deal with that your viewers are your peers, and like that, like the term competition, as much as people try to shrug it off, actually kind of is true. It's like you don't want to admit it. It's like, oh, let's collab, let's do this. Is personally, I make a point not to collaborate with anybody who streams while I stream. Is I make a point to collab on people who have a different schedule with me, who I get along with.
Yeah.
And that way we don't steal each other's viewers, but we're similar in content. So it exposes my viewers to their content and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think it's something that does need talking about, because people either go down the route of full on, this person's stealing my views, or full on, there's enough views to go around. And okay, there is enough. Is there enough views to go around? Maybe. But with streams, especially given the length of them, you know, I'm on for 6 hours today. Now, none of my lot are on in a Tuesday daytime. Overlord Face goes on in about an hour's time. But other than that, none of my lot are on it. Like, literally, there was no one in my followed list on when I went live this morning.
Okay.
But that's the whole thing, is like, there's where was I going with this? Brain. Back on track. It would be like, I'll go with an example. The guy called the Legendary Jigs, and he's a close friend of mine. Started mental health streaming at the same, like, when I'm still on a Saturday night. So like, I'm on I go on 7 till 10. He goes on with a mental health stream at 8. So he's American, but he goes on at the same, like, our time. And again, it's like, okay, I absolutely love Jigs. I think he's amazing, and I don't begrudge him any viewers. But at that same time, there'll be people that'll be from both of our shared communities and they've got to choose at that point. Now, most of them tend to give us both the view, like they'll leave us open and tabbed, but which is cool, and I appreciate that. But it's like, okay, they've got to choose who they're giving their attention. I've tried watching 2 streams at the same time, because I love everybody. But I've tried it. It's basically impossible unless it's 2 people that are kind of not talking very much, and the gaps happen to line up perfectly. But it's obscenely hard, and I think it's because people either go down that route of there's enough views to go around, or like there's the competition. You never, or it's like, this person's stealing my views. If those are your only 2 options, this person's stealing our views, it'd lead to fight. There's enough to go around. It'd lead to, we're going to sweep this under the carpet, and we're not going to talk about it, or about the fact that we could probably all schedule a little bit better so that actually we help each other and we maximize like views that way, or whatever it might be. Because there is a limited amount of attention, and especially with streams, the length of time they go on for. It's not like you watch someone's TikTok and then you can watch someone else's TikTok a minute later. It's not like even with a YouTube video, 10 to 20 minutes or whatever. It's like you could watch 3 different people in the space of an hour. On a stream, you're generally watching one person. And especially if you want to build a community within that, you want to be engaged in the conversation, and it is there. And I think it does. There are conversations to be had, I think, about it. And if we constantly just kind of take one of those 2 sides, we're never actually going to sit and have those conversations, because no one wants to really appear like they're in the "you're stealing my views" camp. No one. And I think the second that you turn around and say, "Do you think maybe we should schedule this a little bit different," or whatever it might be, it's like, well, is there not enough views to go around? It's like, there are, but like, are we both kind of hurting each other in this situation? And
it's kind of hard because it's just the market has become so saturated, and like there was already a large influx of streamers. Like when the lockdown started and that sort of thing. But now it's a niche that's gone mainstream. So there's even more people in VTubing than what there was. So now the options have just exploded.
Yeah.
For example, is my following list is always full. Like live channels, always full. I have people from all over the community, so I can always raid someone larger or smaller. There's always someone on. So there's always someone to collab with. And also, speaking of that, there's always someone on. There's always someone else to watch. There's always one person you want to watch, or I'm not really feeling this game, but I'm going to leave you on lurk in the background. So it's kind of become a little bit of an expectation to just lurk in other people's streams and just mute the tab. So a lot of my viewer count is actually lurkers. So some nights I'll actually interact with 5 or 6 people. Sometimes it'll be 3. On an off night, it'll be 1 or 2. And then there's a small group of people who fall asleep to my streams. But
you do have a very soothing voice.
Yeah, that's what I've been told.
People have said the same to me, though, and I'm like, what are you on about? But then I suppose they might be saying it from the meditation streams where I'm putting my telephone voice on for that one.
I see. But yeah, they're just like, oh, you have a nice soothing ASMR voice. I'm like, okay, I'm trying to play games here and be entertaining and energetic, and you just say ASMR voice. It's like, I'm trying, goddammit. I am trying to be entertaining here.
Well, this soothing can be entertaining, But I suppose if you're going for this, it's supposed to be my high energy voice. It's like...
Yep.
In terms of when you said imposter syndrome on steroids, like talk me through your experience with that.
Well, I haven't had that real. It's not. I've always been me. I know that this is me. That since I've always been online, I've always kind of used an avatar or used to represent me. So that really hasn't affected me necessarily in a way it might affect someone else who's not used to being represented online in a sort of way. But in regarding content, yes, that is, of course, I think that's general streamer issues is like, why do people like me? Is my content actually worth that much? That viewership, what am I doing? What am I worth to these people? So like we have that streamer the basic streamer issues of content kind of imposter. Like why do people like, I don't deserve this for my content? But then if you add the on top of that, are they here for my character? Are they here for me? You know, that sort of battle, push and pull in your mind is that's big. And also a large part of the community consists of people, at least in the English community, is people who don't necessarily get to represent themselves the way they want in real life. So if you add that, it compounds this is how I'm being, how I want to represent myself in real life, but also online. It's like, do people like me? Do they like my persona? Do they like the better version of who I want to be? So it's just kind of like this big amalgamation of uncertainty and kind of confusion for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. So I know obviously, again, you're heavily baked into your lore, but with how you present yourself and represent yourself online, and as you are xDivZero, how does that, like, how do you feel different when you are you offline?
I try to be more I treat this more like a job, kind of like I put on my heels, if you will, and go to work. So like this is my more professional kind of demeanor as opposed to my more casual, I'm just chilling with friends and shooting the shit, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I try to keep my language much cleaner than usual, and you know, keep the dirty jokes on the DL. But there are some who do embrace the like full gremlin, like Mad TV style sort of, you know, content. And it's really quite interesting, like shock humor, even like not necessarily as great as like, you know, like Howard Stern kind of like toe curling, but still like modern day shock would be considered, you know, edgy. Or there's some actually who play up the sexual aspect of it, you know, like they have big boobs and they play into like, oh yes, I'm sexy, I'm horny all the time. Or there's another subgroup, it's called Say So, and they're kind of the PG-13, so they don't swear, they don't really have any sexual jokes. They play, you know, some younger games, so like Roblox and Minecraft, and like, you know, content that appeals to younger kids. Not necessarily younger kids, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. So I suppose that leads very obviously to the question of, are there kind of like cliques and like, you know, yes, in groups?
Yes, 100%. 100%. Oh gosh, yes, 100%. There's kind of like I almost want to say like a class, you know how like in high school there's like people who start school together, is that then is like a class of 05 or 010 or like 2020, etc.
Yeah.
So if people start out at the same time, so then you start at zero, you have 0 followers, 0 Twitter followers. So you're like, oh hey, here's another small VTuber who's starting up. So then you follow each other, and then you follow people who they follow and interact with. And then that's kind of how you gain exposure. And then we gain exposure through Twitter interactions, being positive and uplifting, or trolling, or just interacting with, you know, our peers and our viewer base. And so like you start together and then you grow alongside each other. And then you either kind of like solidify that group into like the popular kids, or you branch out, or get a lot of people actually feel pushed out of their group that they started with, or they just happen to find a group that they settled in with better, or it's a lot of social dynamics, really. So it's like high school politics meets streaming with the expectation of collaboration and being social with a mismatch of personalities and characters. So
you said earlier about like how the way of marketing this and growing this, you know, it's different than sort of your regular stream. What sort of differences have you seen there?
Well, I came into this I'm going to play a character, but I'm also going to approach it as a real life streamer, so I can corner the market in between people who like titty monsters and who like, you know, like the squealy little cute girls. Because I saw a gap in the market. I'm like, you know what? I want to appeal to normal people, not people who are, you know, so niche into this. And that's kind of how I created my character. as opposed to like I'm a magical girl, that sort of thing. And that's another reason why I have myself baked into my lore, is to appeal to that. I forgot where I was going with this. Sorry. Sorry, what were we?
Yeah, it was just about how things are different in terms of how the particular challenges that you face to grow and market it.
Right. Marketing, right. So I approached this from, just a normal IRL streamer. So I followed Ashney's, webinars and like some Harris Heller videos and such like that. And so I'm like, all right, cool, social media. I'm going to post once a day on Twitter, going to make some extra content here, post some YouTube videos. But since it is such a niche kind of appeal, is you have to be active on Twitter nearly all the time. So if you're not constantly posting on Twitter, no one's going to see your personality, or, just no one's going to see you at all. And one post doesn't cut it. So, you have to be actively supporting the community around. And like, if you don't post for days, your followers will go down. Sometimes your viewers will go down because your going live posts won't be seen or shared by people within the community. So approaching social media is absolutely upside down. It's just upside down.
Yeah. Do you find that with regards to the audience coming from within other VTubers, how often do you get like people who've never really watched a VTuber coming over out of intrigue and then actually getting what it's about? Because I imagine it's like one of those communities that you kind of, how do you get into if you're not already into it? It's like, how do you get over that threshold?
Usually people get into like VTubing through funny clips on like YouTube or whatever. It's like, oh, this person's really funny, unintentionally or intentionally. Oh, they have a nice sense of humor. And then they're just here chatting for, like 2 hours or so, interacting with stream, or other streamers and just having fun. And it's kind of fun to watch an interactive anime of sorts. Or like, you're watching a show on TV and you're actually interacting with people. So I've had some people wander in. They're like, oh yeah, I found you in just chatting because you were doing Blender, or, like programs that are that way. They're like, I just thought I'd check you out. You're really cool. I like your content. And it's kind of like, yeah, it's a little jarring to see models, or like, oh, that's really cool that you're using what you're making, that sort of thing. And a lot of VTubers do a lot of art, so they can draw their own kind of models and that sort of thing. So people like they just wander in that way, and they're like, oh, that's cool. But.
Yeah, I mean, like I personally find it like massively fascinating, like designing the outfits for it and everything. When I was on Wabber's stream with Hattus, Wabber decided 15 minutes before go live that it was a good time to update Windows. So, so we all sat in a Discord call for about 90 minutes before the interview was 5 hours, supposed to be 5 hours long, so it was fine. But but we all sat in a Discord call for like 90 minutes whilst Wabber was sorting out the computer. And Hattus was like, right, I'm sorting myself out a new top. And it's just like, and I was just like, that's pretty cool. It's like,
yeah.
And you, by the way, your jacket is just amazing.
Oh, thank you. I was working on that yesterday, adding the glow to it. So
yeah, it's awesome. Like, I want that jacket in real life.
The jacket itself, actually, I got on for free. There's free assets and such for various models and so. Oh, hold up, let me find my chair.
Gravity finds the chair for me.
If only it were that easy, right? But so like there's free assets that people make, or like I got this one off of a website called Booth, and I edited it myself, so people can find assets and make assets for other people. They can sell them for a cheap price or whatever. I'm actually in the process of making my own outfit, but it wasn't ready in time, so I just kind of panicked and got this one and edited it to how I like. So there's just a lot of assets, a lot of free cool fashion, and there's actually a little bit of an overlap with VR chat. So it kind of there's also kind of a topic that this touches on with like V streamers and such, is there's a real world kind of this is the future of streaming and gaming, of V-streaming is, hey, I can be myself in VR chat. So here's this streamer that you really like, right? And then you can meet up with them in VR chat and just hang out and chat with them. So
that is kind of a really cool element, and I can honestly, I feel like VTubers are going to have, when Ready Player One really does happen, and we're all buying things off the evil overlords to, then I feel like VTubers will have had an advantage there, because obviously they've already got the characters, they already know who they are and what they are, and then the rest of us will be like, ooh, it's time to pick an avatar. And it is going to fascinate. It's going to absolutely fascinate me, because there's a video on my YouTube somewhere that says something about VR and body dysmorphia. I can't remember. It was a video I wrote last year, but the idea of that. So with the advent of things like filters and stuff, body dysmorphia is increased. People being able to make their face look thinner or make it look more contoured. But we've done that forever. There was always makeup. There was corsets once upon. Well, actually, they still exist. But corsets were commonplace once upon a time. But it's like, the thing is, like, how we want to be represented in terms of, obviously, as yourself, like, you know how xDivZero wants to be represented, and
right.
and what she looks like, and it's like, okay, if I was given a completely different set of rules, would I look like this guy? If I go into a VR chat, like, am I going to have a 3D scanned version of me? I mean, I'm pretty much almost certainly going to be purple. Like, it's like, or at least have purple eyes. It's like, there's going to be something. It's not going to be what I look like now, but I suppose the question of it becomes, it's like, once someone's seen themselves with a filter on, now by comparison, they don't like themselves as much as they like before, because they'd never been shown the alternative. And as soon as, like, a person sees themselves like with de-aged, or like, I'm nearly 40, so my frown lines are really beginning to kick in now. So like, the second I'd see myself like that, in fact, even down to the fact that I'm on a pretty decent camera with pretty decent lighting in here, whereas I was away last week, so I did one of my streams just from my cell phone, and it's like, and even seeing the me on screen, that's different. It's like, it's not the same me. It's like, my skin is much pastier and whiter when I'm just on a phone camera than it is on this thing. Does that element kick in at all? Like, in terms of, like, do you ever, like, look in the mirror as you in real life and wish that this was you?
This actually touches briefly on the previous imposter kind of syndrome, is, representing yourself how you would like to represent yourself in real life. Personally, there's some, like, when I was making my character, I unintentionally made it look a little bit like me, but there's no want to have, like, divide by zero become numbers and actually get uploaded to the internet. So I quite like being a physical being. If I may break character for a bit.
Yeah.
But there's always that wants to be a better version of yourself, or, like, just do things you couldn't normally do. Or there's actually there's a push for some IRL streamers to actually become VTubers, and they're much more confident that way because they get to represent themselves not how they are. So some of them are like, well, I want to be more feminine. Even if I don't look feminine, I want to be more feminine. So my models can be more feminine.
I've just got my crown for that.
That's a very lovely crown.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
I just have my halo.
Well, this is called a Cralo. It's half crown, half halo. So, and yeah, I bought it as a joke, and now I love it. So there you go. We've got a question from chat saying, do you feel the community is largely made up of anime fans because of the typical avatar style?
Yes and no. Yes, originally, just because it was a niche kind of, Japanese hobby, and it was based on Japanese anime style and anime characters. But now that it's pushed into the, more Western market, is the the exposure to it and the audience is actually expanding. For example, you're being exposed to it and you're like, oh wow, that's really cool, and you're not necessarily an anime fan.
No. Well, apart from Dragon Ball.
Well, I mean, like, you're not steeped in like the latest anime series and anime figures. You know,
I'm not even up to date with Dragon Ball.
That's true.
I do have a Goku. I've got a Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Goku, like just hanging around over here. And I do also have, just hanging around on my microphone, I have a Perfect Cell as well. But
nice.
That's kind of like, and I was actually, one thing I was really, really gutted about was that there was, when I went to Japan a couple of years back, there was Freezer face masks.
Oh, cool.
And I totally nearly bought one. And it's funny really, because they've got all the kind of, novelty face masks, I guess, and not a single Japanese person wears them. It's like, those are totally for tourists, and tourists don't wear face masks. Yeah, we do a lot now. I mean, I do have a purple a purple circuit one, which matches that thing behind me, which was just totally and utterly not custom made at all. One of my friends found it for me, but yeah, I'm like, I could have had like the full on Freezer face. Actually, it might have been Cell before, when he had the form before that one, but you could get them, and you could get them with sleep masks as well, with the eyes, which I had this instead, which is a frog sleep mask.
I love it.
But yeah. Does anybody in chat have any questions before we begin to wrap this up? And is there anything else like that we've not discussed that you think's important?
We touched briefly on numbers and competition. It's like a, there's a lot of comparison. Like comparison is inevitable, whether it's, viewer counts or numbers, or because it is, competition is like, oh, this person is more personable than me and they stream during my time. So like you lose out on the engagement. And it's, a lot of people don't mention that. And also another topic regarding the representing yourself is there's a lot of rebrands too that happen. It's like you stream as this person in this character, like this character and persona, but then it doesn't fit after a while. Like after you settle in, you're like, I don't like this. This isn't me. This doesn't vibe with me. So then people redesign and rebrand with different characters and that sort of thing. And then mix that with I'm going to compare to this other person, even if I do switch. And it's just a big knot of confidence issues on top of normal streaming issues.
Yeah, I suppose it's funny with the smaller sample size, like in terms of the number of VTubers. If you were to be similar to one of them, it'd probably get picked up on or pointed out so much quicker, because obviously, like with standard streamers, it's like, well, if that person's similar. Well, how are they similar? Oh, because they play Warzone. It's like, yes, so do 46,000 other people. It's like, this person's similar. Right. Why are they similar? Oh, because they use Yeti Blue microphones, like Blue Yeti microphones. It's like, so what? It's like, but I suppose if you were to kind of like go down a sort of character style that was popular, it's almost like you get accused of copying so much quicker.
Oh yeah, easy. That's actually one of the things I set out to do when I designed my characters. I saw that everybody was a cute pink cat girl or a very large breasted kind of sexy woman. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be pink, and I'm not going to be like super exposing of like any female assets. So let's just go the other direction.
Hey, speaking of the competition, the legendary Jigs has just rocked up in the house. Jigs, you need to go back and watch what we said about you a minute ago, and I'm just going to leave that hanging there, and you can be paranoid about it until you watch the vlog back. It was kind of nice. What do you? Another question from chat is, what do you use for your model? Face rig or animes?
I actually use a free software called VC Face. It is an open source face tracking software made by Amelia on Twitter, but it has a basic mesh onto your face. It tracks it with your camera, and then it moves a model just with it. And there's a lot of free, like, that's also another topic, is the gatekeeping within the community, especially like financially gatekeeping, is because there are free assets, regardless if they're like good or put a lot of work into it or look great. Is there's a little bit of a bigotry against 3D or people who don't invest large amounts of money up top, which is that corporate mindset again. But the free assets and programs out there are just amazing, and you can do amazing things with them. But my model I made in Roid, which is a free program, edited it in Blender, which is a free 3D modeling program, and then edited it further in Unity, which is another free program for animation and such. So
yeah, and it looks amazing. So it's like this. But I think this is something that's becoming kind of more apparent again in other spaces as well, like things with DaVinci Resolve and stuff like that. It's like, I mean, I'm one of those weird people that has the Adobe suite, but which basically most people say, well, the funny thing is that'll start getting gate kept from the other side now, because people are like, well, this person's got too much money and therefore doesn't need any support from anybody. If you want support, just stop paying your Adobe fees and start using DaVinci. But I think again, the more people that kind of use that type of stuff and open up about it, and then people are like, and the more people go, what, you made that on free software, and are genuinely surprised by it. Does that come up an awful lot? Like, are people very interested in what tech you're using?
Yes, especially like the higher end, like the larger tech VTubers. So like for Foamit, it's just full body tracking, as well as like Elite Motion, and she's written her own like face tracking program. So they want to know, like what trackers you're using and that sort of thing. And it adds like an extra level of immersion when that sort of happens. But personally, as I started on a budget, and like the most I've put into my stream is a microphone, but otherwise I'm using my built-in webcam on my laptop, that sort of thing. I don't even have a second monitor.
It's amazing. It's honestly like as soon as like you came into the chat, I was just like, this is cool.
Oh, right. I'm running this through OBS as so my face tracker, I'm exporting it as a virtual camera and then putting that as an input into OBS. And then so now I'm just talking through OBS, which is exporting it as a virtual camera. Yeah,
well, it's bloody awesome. And I think it's great. In terms of going back to what you said before about like the rebranding and stuff, like if when people do that, like you said before, like, oh, this type of character is not working, all the rest of it. I suppose this is imposter syndrome on steroids again. It's like you said before, it's like, do people like me or do people like the character? It's like any change that anyone makes in a stream, like if we see changes in numbers, the immediate reaction is like, it's like undo, like go back to how it was before. Like this is, again, it's like, is that something that is seen there with a rebranded character? It's like, do people tend to, like, when they rebrand a character, dip before they rise again? Or is it like, does the rebrand tend to be a kind of the opposite? Does it tend to be, oh, this person's rebranded, let's all go and watch, and then it falls off? Like,
it depends, to be honest. Sometimes people like the model more. Sometimes people like the model less. Some people, as much as they don't want to admit it, are there for the avatar. And if it becomes less cool or more cool, you'll gain extra viewership, because we are visual people. We see something we like, we click.
So let's say you've got a person sat opposite you, like they've got truth serum. They're being 100% honest. Like if someone, and you say to a person, "Do you come for me or for the avatar?" and the person says, "For the avatar," how does that make you feel? What do you think?
Well, since I actually created my own avatar, that's flattering for me. However, most people don't create their avatar, but it's based on the character they design. So it's still like an aspect of them, and that's great. But if you don't make your character, that compounds a lot of uncertainty and confidence issues as well. So it's like, if I rebrand because it's made by someone else, will they be here? Will they stay around for my personality and my content, or because they only like the model?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's. I guess that's the takeaway for VTubing is confidence is lacking.
Okay, flip that question. The person you know again, 100% truth serum. They say, "Are you here for my avatar or for me?" They say, "For you." How's that different?
Sometimes like then that's the normal, then that falls into the normal streamer uncertainty of what's so great about me, why are you here for me? But also like once you get over that hump of they're here for me and my personality, then that's great. It's like awesome, you're here for my content because my content is me. That's the, I guess, easy part of VTubing is my content is me. We do a lot of just chatting, so that's me. It's great. You're not necessarily here for my gameplay, you're here for my interaction. Is I've had that a lot of comments on my stream is I like the way that you read chat and interact with chat and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
I'm just seeing if there's any more questions from over here. Your avatar is awesome, according to Jix.
Oh, thank you. Well, I can also do fun emotions, so I can blush, be extremely happy.
See,
I just haven't been playing. I'm sure you can be happy.
I mean, I can be happy, yeah, but I can't have hearts. Like the Kralo, right? Was the how the Kralo came into existence was I basically said that whenever I did something angelic on the stream, that's a good job I didn't leave them on. I left the alerts on the entire time. It's a good job there's only one just gone off now. Thank you very much for the follow, Milesy. So yeah, the reason the Kralo came along is because I said something particularly angelic on stream, and I said now I just need like a halo to pop over my head so I can be like ping, and then 5 minutes later I bought this on Amazon. So so yeah, it's I can. Oh, you've got sunglasses now. See,
I do. I also have ears.
Oh yeah,
yeah, just pop them on.
Nice. Is there anything again? Is there anything else that we want to that you want to kind of highlight that we've not got to?
I mean, there's a huge issue with toxic positivity.
Go on.
You're like, oh really? Yeah, toxic positivity is just positive to the point of it's just being merely straight up an enabler for negative behavior or bad behavior. It's like, oh, I shouldn't do this, but it's like, you do you, boo. It's like, but no, that's actually a harmful behavior for yourself and for your viewers. Like, you really shouldn't do that. And it's, you want to keep comfy vibes, so you don't want to start drama because your viewers are your peers. So there's a lot of shade against speaking out in some of those things. So right. It's just this perpetual feedback loop of building each other up until it's so high and the pressure's so high that people have like mental breakdowns. But you have to be positive about it and you have to continue being on it. And it's just ridiculous. Like on one hand, I really enjoy the positivity, but on the other hand is just the fakeness of some of the positivity is just smothering and suffocating. And there's actually a high rate of burnout, I believe, because of it. Yeah. It's just, it's like, oh, you're doing great. This is great. Just keep on doing what you're doing. It's like, no, you need to stop, take a breath, take care of yourself before you burn out.
Yeah, absolutely. And this comes back to what we were talking about before, the fact that that person is within their character. If their character doesn't get stressed out, if their character doesn't, if their character is, I'm the bubbly positive person and I've got to be that person every single day. And it's like, this is one of the things I did find when I first spoke to you when you came into the stream a few months back, and I was like, I was really interested to know about the whole, being in character versus not. Because I one of the pieces of advice that I'd often give to people, like, and it's the cliche that's at the top of my mental health for streamers video. Number one, we get the cliche out the way is be yourself. But the reason I say that is not because like, oh yeah, you just got to be you or whatever, like the trite advice. It's like, look, the energy it takes to put on a mask and to pretend everything's fine, and the pressure that it puts on you pretending everything's fine when everything isn't fine, is part of what's making everything not fine. So like you take off that and go, you know what, I'm actually having a crap day today. I'm having a shit day today. I'm having, you know, like things aren't going good. I'm not my best, but we're here, and that's the way we roll. That takes off that, and that's how I do things. And like, and again, I never say that the way I do things is the way that everyone should, but that's the way I do things. And I know that if I'm feeling anxious or if I'm feeling stressed, and I tell everybody, a good 10, 20, 30% of that stress or anxiety goes away. Because part of that stress was, holy crap, what if they find out that I'm stressed? What if they find out this? Yep. And I suppose if I was resigned to having to be that character for 6 hours on stream, I don't think I could do it. Like, I don't think I could. I think it'd be a double-edged sword. It'd be one of those things that's great because, okay, I've got to go and be positive person. And some days you fake it till you make it, right? Some days you do. But as you just said, then all other days, it leads to burnout. It leads to, okay, I've been faking this for so long. It's like, so what does that person do if they're not feeling the best that day and their character doesn't allow them to not be their best? It's like, does that person cancel a stream? Like, what's the...
Sometimes people cancel streams. Sometimes they just push through until they have to take a 2-week, month break, just because they're just in shambles emotionally.
Yeah. And
again, because this then harkens back to the corporate kind of pressure is, you're there. This is supposed to be like your job. But like in corporateness is, that is their job, and they have like a part-time job. But a lot of the community has like a full-time job or a full-time school on top of trying to be a more corporate streamer. And it just is a lot. And like people are trying to do YouTube montages and TikToks on top of managing a social media account, being active and present and networking, and then streaming for 2 to 6 hours every night or like a couple times a week. So, yeah, because like I hadn't, like I said, I mentioned that I came into this thinking I was going to be a normal like IRL streamer. So it would be like, all right, we're going to limit it to 2 to 3 hours. We're going to do like limit it to like 3 times a week or so, maybe 4, post one time on Twitter, like very measured kind of a work-life balance. But once I'm in here is like my YouTube content is barren because I'm always doing something, networking or, that sort of stuff. And it's very tiring because I made a point to get off of social media when I noticed that it was taking over my life. Mm-hmm. So having to get into actually being active on Twitter and social media it's very hard for me personally. Yeah, it's exhausting.
No, I understand. Like, if you actually look at my Twitter account, it's been there for, I don't know, 11 years or however long. And it's like, it's literally just 11 years ago. I was a musician, and well, still I'm a musician, I suppose. You don't just stop. And it was, I was posting about music and posting about recording studio and stuff. Then when I rebranded as a personal trainer, it's like, right, okay, there was another push at the beginning of that, and I pushed to start talking about personal training and health and fitness and stuff. And then when I got into the mental health side of things, there was another push there, which didn't last very long, and it's now lasted the longest it's ever lasted because it seems to go hand in hand with streaming more than anything else. Like it's when I was trying to create content on Instagram, having a Twitter account never really led anybody over there or never really did anything for Instagram. Whereas with Twitch, and again, this comes down to Twitch's wonderful discoverability,
What discoverability?
Exactly. Well, we decided to do a little experiment earlier on, and I looked up the mental health tag and went to the second to top. The top one that was actually streaming was a power lifter at first. Then slightly later on, as well, where are China in terms of time? They're behind. No, they're ahead of us. So that means they're probably so significantly ahead of you. And then when we went back later on, there was some Chinese streams and stuff playing League of Legends and stuff, but with the mental health tag on. And I'm like, you're playing League of Legends to 4.7 thousand people. That's not where's the mental health in all this? Like, seriously, I don't understand. But
and League has one of the most toxic. That's just irony. It's pure irony because League is one of the most toxic fandoms ever.
So I've heard. Never watched it. Like I'm not. That's the funny thing is like I don't go around bloody like toxic fans, like, you know. It's like I've got mental health issues enough as it is. So I suppose that's technically some internalized gatekeeping for me. It's like I don't even go near them. No one's told me I can't go near them. I've just said no, that's not for you. But yeah, so the third one we found was a guy who's literally studying for 12 hours a day. And he's using the mental health tag, and it's an every hour by the looks of it. It was broke up into a 50-minute period where you've got a side profile of him staring at 3 screens and writing on a tablet, and then at the end of that, for 10 minutes, he has a break at the end of every hour and talks to people and stuff. And it was doing that to 350 people, and I'm just like, and so we ended up with like a 45-minute conversation about whether intelligence is part of mental health or not. It was a great conversation. But this is like the discoverability. It's like, okay, how would I get, like, how do I get a mental health drop-in chat discovered here? Well, the answer is I can't get it. I don't really get it discovered here. I get it discovered through Twitch and through Twitter. And the biggest discoverability for me has been that I run a mental health talk show along with the National Health Service, which, you know, are basically our UK health service, and they have mailing lists, and their mailing lists help. And so the thing is, their mailing list means that when we do one of those episodes on either my YouTube or my Twitch, the numbers go all the way up here. Then when I do a normal episode, it doesn't really translate to anybody coming along for that. In fact, actually, it translated to someone coming along going, "This man swears and his wife passed him a beer. This isn't appropriate content for the NHS." It's like, that's because it's Saturday night and it's not my NHS content. Thank you very much. But this is the whole thing, is like the system. The thing is that we get told that each of these things is required in order for us to grow, and I think it pushes people to do all of them, to try and do every single one of them. That's why I said now, like my TikTok is literally, I've made the conclusion that it's only ever going to be like little clips from my stream. I'm not going to make anything specific for TikTok. But it was probably about this time last year, I did a little experiment, having done, it was because I did, when COVID first started, I did something called the month of mindset, which every single day for 30 days I did. Oh dear. I did a video. A YouTube video every single day. I'd only just started streaming at this point. But for a month, I basically did a topic, and then I gave people a challenge on a topic the night before, and then the next day I did a video of doing that challenge for 30 days. It was some of the most long-winded content it's ever taken me to produce. That was the point at which I started actually using my proper microphone rather than just the microphone off the camera, because I want the quality to be better and all of this. Right. And it just completely and utterly tanked. And then I was like, right, okay. At the end of this, I got a notebook, on my desk, empty notebook, and I took a picture of that notebook. This is on Instagram. I took a picture of that notebook that they'd had all this video content for the last 30 days, and then on the 31st day, picture of the notebook, pen lying on an empty page, saying, and the caption says, "Let's see where this day goes. #creativity." Ding, 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 ding. So like likes off the chart. And then so I for a month after that, I was like, right, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to alternate between a piece of content that I put a ton of effort into and a piece of content that I do absolutely nothing for, like just like an easy quote or a selfie or whatever, versus an instructional video or whatever. And over the course of the month, it was really conclusive that the less effort I put into things, the more of a result I get, which is not it's not the message we want to be putting out there for the kids, is it? Just do less. But
true.
But I have found that like there actually there comes a limit. But there's another video on my YouTube called, I think it's called, does your view account affect your mental health or whatever? Which the answer for me is yes. And
yes.
it leads to what I've said is the 2 Ds. I either become desperate or despondent. And it's like, okay, when I really push for something and it doesn't work, I either become so desperate that I push even harder and just keep pushing, or I go, what's the point? Well, seriously, what is the point of this? What's the point of this? What is the point of me? It can go that far. And that's the thing, is I see this so much in streamers. Streamers talk about it more than on other social media platforms, actually, and I think that's good. We admit to burning out probably because we do 6-hour streams as opposed to 4-minute Instagram lives, but we admit to it. We talk about burnout a hell of a lot more than any other content creators out there, which is good, I suppose. But then we all do it, and we all I suppose we all try and outcompete everyone else and beat each other, and whilst collaborating and whilst all trying to get ahead at the same time. And therefore, the more we all try to get ahead, the more you've got to do to stick out. This train of thought's not going well for me, is it? That was very not bleak in the slightest. Right, I think I'll actually just have a very quick check that if anyone's asked any questions. I don't think we have. Streaming can be so hard, but be honest with your community has actually made it a bit easy for me. Yeah, it's totally. Cursing and drinking and being intelligent ain't mental health. What? So yeah. Yes, no overthinking it. Just post. Yeah, sometimes you have to. Is there anything else? Is there anything else you'd like to add? And if so, go for it. If not, let's let everyone know where we can find you on social media.
I guess generally the community it's intimidating, but also it's very welcoming. That's one of the right sides of the toxic positivity, is everybody's encouraging. If you'd like to get in or you're interested, is usually be like, hey, I'm here. Or if you like this, here's like 4 or 5 other people that I think you might like with this topic, that sort of thing. There's always like smaller VTubers to watch, or larger VTubers that are more produced, or some people who are more off the wall, that sort of thing. So like that's also a nice side effect of the social networking and, being peers with your viewers, is you're like, oh yeah, here's 6 other people who like the same thing you like.
Yeah.
Go to them.
Awesome. Cool. We have already got your Twitter, Twitch, and vTubing.com. That's some good modding. My mod RSG's like modding to the next level. He's found a website that I've never even heard of. Up on there. Is there anywhere else that people can go to find you, or is that the preferred places?
Probably Twitter's the easiest way to reach me. Also, my Twitch, my stream schedule's there, and also pinned on my Twitter. I'm just starting Instagram. I have one. It's just empty. I also just recently started TikTok, but it's empty. And also my YouTube is empty. But I'm working on it, okay? I'm working on it. Right? I got them all, yes. They're there for when I manage to actually get around to it. But I only have a set amount of energy.
The set amount of energy thing is like, okay, here's my little bit of advice going in. If you sort out the TikToks, YouTube shorts, it's just emerging, it's just starting, and people grow entire channels without putting any long form content whatsoever. And you get to just I'm honestly going to start repurposing all of my TikTok. I just have to I don't tend to swear too much on my YouTube. That's like that's the business version of me, I guess.
I see.
So I have to kind of then go, crap, did I just swear in the middle of that clip? But I'm considering it because, quite frankly, yeah, at the minute, what I'm doing is 3 streams a week, 2 YouTube videos a week, a podcast a week. 2 podcasts a week at the minute now. However, I've they happen to now be in my stream, so that's cool. So that's I'm repurposing that hour. But it's like, and again, if I'm perfectly honest, I would love to sit here and say that by redoubling all my efforts and putting out all the extra content, the gain from it has been ridiculous. It's been everything that Ashley told me it'd be. Who, by the way, should be on next Tuesday if she. But I know. So I'm going to be asking. I'll be drilling into that. I'll be drilling into the law of diminishing returns with her, hopefully.
That's a thing.
it's totally a thing, and it's just I would say like the hardest part of it all is knowing when to kind of like, you get to the end of the day and you go, did I work hard enough on that? Did I not? Did I actually was the extra work I did worth it, or was it not? And it's just, that's the constant. I suppose I'm lucky in the fact that I only ever imposter syndrome when I'm symptomatic of my bipolar. So if I'm down I think I'm a worthless piece of crap. If I'm up, I'm like, why aren't people bowing down at my feet and worshipping me? I think I'm the greatest thing in the world when I'm up, and then in the middle, I'm kind of like, okay, I work hard, I do, I put in value, I try my best, and I'm okay, and that's the majority of the time I think that. However, like my big one is more, okay, did I do the right piece of work? Did I put the right piece? Could I have put more content out today? Probably. Would it have made any difference? Don't know. But like that's I suppose is where I have my biggest struggle is thinking that.
Right.
And the way I describe it is like it's like riding a roller coaster whilst you're building it. You've got to put the pieces of the track in to see whether it'll bring you back up at some point, and you just never know. And you've got to get a piece of track down because time is ticking away. And if you don't, you're coming right the way off the rails. But hey, I'm not used. This is me being toxically negative now. Not quite.
No, it's just discussing normal life issues and being relatable, because it's an issue that everybody faces to some degree. So, I mean,
it is.
It's something that does need to be discussed.
Yeah, I think so. And as I said before, like the main reason I think it's good to discuss these things is because, like, we shy away from these discussions because we don't want people to there's that constant argument that if you're not succeeding, you're just not good enough. Like, it's like, okay, great. In the mental health community, that don't go down too well. But but it's like but there are tons of people, like we probably see it on Twitter all the time, where you say, who's like, there'll be those posts that'll say, who is this streamer, and it's got like 10 bars in talent and 1 bar in viewers or something, and people will tag an absolute ton of people after there. I mean, they're just ways to get cheap engagement, those posts. But
of course.
but there are people out there that are doing amazing stuff that haven't got the recognition yet, or may never get the recognition. And I'd love to sit here and say it's one for one, and it's completely and utterly down to the amount you totally and utterly in a linear fashion get out what you put in, but you don't. And the second you start talking about it, it's this binary thing. People are like, is it hard work or is it luck? And there's the hard work camp, and then there's the luck camp. And generally speaking, the luck camp are deemed to be defeatist or negative, or like, and the hard work camp, generally speaking, the only people that say hard work pays off are the ones that hard work paid off for. That you don't get people out there going, oh, it's all about hard work, I'm working my arse off, and like, I've not made it yet, but I know that if I keep on doing this hard work, it's rare to actually hear that. And I think I think having these conversations and actually saying, you know what, it's hard work makes a big difference. Luck also plays a role, like both do. And like, one person, you get people like they'll work their asses off and get, like, if you get someone who's like not really working very hard that gets a really big raid coming, then that raid won't stay. Like that raid will never come back again, right? And like the people from that raid will never come back again. It's the same as like if you get people out there that have one-hit wonders, like they get a single released, and because they got lucky with that single being picked up by somebody, and they've got no big back catalogue because they've not actually worked all that hard, they come and go very quickly. But still, they get that moment in the sun. They get that degree of success. At the same time, you'll get a person out there that has a complete and utter amazing back catalogue but never gets that one song that's picked up. So they've got ridiculous talent that's off the charts that just never gets noticed. That exists. Yep. More often than not, the stories we hear are the people that have worked their arse off, then one day they get their lucky break, and then when the lucky break comes through, then people are like, I've got this that I can watch now. And I intend to fully be one of those people at some point. And my favourite compliment is, oh my God, how did I not find you sooner? You've got all this content. People will go over to the YouTube and be like, you've got 157 videos on mental health on here. And I'm like, yeah, no. It's like, you don't say. I lived through making all of them and posting all of them and seeing them get 3 views. It's like,
staring at the view count. You're just like, oh, come on.
Yeah,
it's like, I'm ready to be appreciated. I'm working hard here.
This one's got 4,000. I'm like, yeah, because I paid for views on that one. My absolute top viewed things is like, and I like to be transparent with things. It's like, it's obscenely important to me. But like, if I go, even the top videos in this period, the two top ones, in fact, 5 out of the top 7 of my top view videos in the last 28 days are those collaborations with the National Health Service that I told you about. Weirdly, an animation that I made years ago that had like 4 views in its first 6 months. It was like, I want to look at the entire life of that thing now. I want the lifetime of it. Give me more. No, never mind. But it's got 130 views or something in the last 28 days. But when it probably never had 138 views in its first year of being up. It's weird how like old videos are getting really picked up by the algorithm now. Like ones that didn't get any attention whatsoever, like 3 years ago when I put them up. So that's quite bizarre to see for me.
Well, YouTube's changing their algorithm quite a lot lately, so that's a whole different beast.
Well, there we go. Maybe someone will finally realize that I wrote Barbie Girl or something.
But also, you touched on an interesting thing regarding the luck versus hard work. Is there was a big debate, and there still is a big debate of whether a female model or male model garners more success or attention. And it's one of those having to admit that yes, it's sex sells. You know, there's boobies. People like boobies. They like cute things.
Yeah.
So they're drawn to that. But again, also they're not going to stay if you're not interesting. But that's kind of like you luck into somebody who, oh, I liked your model, but I found out that I like your personality, and let me shout you out. This big streamer just shout you out, and then someone's like, oh, cool. But there's also, so like you can luck into it, but also there's hard work of, you know, marketing yourself and actually getting yourself out there and collabing with people that just sometimes doesn't pay off like it should. There's quite a few people who I can mention that happens. Is they're helpful, they're friendly, they're like, they'll bend over backwards for people, but it doesn't actually pay off. And I think, I forget which webinar, is it like there's a type of streamer that kind of fades into obscurity, is they're there to refer people to other people, and then their content isn't exactly appreciated, which is very unfortunate, but a very real sort of thing. And
damn it, I've got to stop doing that. That's what my podcast is. It's like, here's a cool person, go check them out. And that's like, I say that twice a week. It's like, here's this is like, if you like this person, go check them out. And I've always said this is it's better. I found it's better to be a podcast guest than a podcast host in terms of for kind of drawing an audience. It's better to be a podcast guest rather than a host, because if you host someone, then they'll have ideally when you're hosting somebody, they're the ones that are shining anyway. That if you're bloody dominating the interview and not letting the other person talk, then you're not a particularly great host. And I sometimes do that. But I'm learning. But you ultimately, like, their audience are coming over and they're not really getting a slice of you. They're getting the creator that they already like and they already know.
Right.
So what the insight that they actually get to you is not very much. Meanwhile, their audience that are there on the show that you're going to, they're getting a full slice of you. They're getting a full idea of you, and they get you get a full opportunity to express your personality and express who you are and your views and opinions to a sort of an audience that are already primed to be there for like an hour, or they're already, meanwhile. And I actually found this. I found this because, like, from being on podcasts and stuff, like in the real world, all podcasts are sort of in the real world. But people, the funny thing was like that people, like my friends and stuff, have found it so much more. Like, my friends would more than likely come and listen if I was on a radio station than a podcast. Seems to be more prestige and more respect with that or whatever. But meanwhile, like, I went on like a really big local radio station in Liverpool, like in a big town, about 3 years back, and there was no one that came through saying, "Oh, I heard you on Radio City," and blah, and this was this, that, and the other. I heard you, and then I'd be on a podcast with a fitness coach. And the way I saw it was the people who were listening to Radio City, they've got it on in the car, an interview comes on, just like whatever, they're listening whilst doing other things. Whereas a podcast audience is there for a specific person, and if that person's now vouching for somebody else, it really kind of like you've got that person's audience captivated. And there's probably again there'll be some point where if you get someone absolutely bloody huge on your podcast, then it'll bring in a big number of people. But when you're working with people of a similar size, it's generally, from my experience, much better for you to go on their show than it is for them to come on yours.
That's usually why I collab with people, is I either host their channel or just direct them to the channel that I'm going to be on. Is otherwise it splits views, and it's just not helpful for either of us, because then it gets my audience engaged with them, and then their audience is engaged with me as well. Yeah. So those are things I've learned from collabing with a lot of people.
Awesome. All right. I'll let you go because we've gone like half an hour over.
Oh, have we?
Well, yeah. Like I say the half an hour. It's so other people know roughly how much time. You also, by the way, got to be. I don't know if you can see my screen anywhere, or my stream anywhere, but you also got to be on the new podcast background for the first person. So you're not only the first VTuber that's on, you're also the first one for this new layout to be used on as well. So this new overlay. Which I now can't stand the old one in respect. Can you actually see the screen?
I can, yes.
You can, right? So this is the new one. That's the old one now. I've just switched the back to the other background. I still like it, and it's in keeping with the rest of my stream. But this new kind of one with the waveforms, it's an audio wave behind there, so it's very thematic. And our colours go perfectly well together.
They do indeed. I was going to mention that.
The new overlay fits VTuber being first fantastically, in my opinion. It was totally and utterly accidental. I'd love to say that. And yeah, I fully 100% planned this rebrand, and it was all set to perfectly line up. But actually, yesterday I was really struggling getting any work done, and so I decided to do something fun rather than any of the boring work that I had to do. So that was what happened. I
mean, it's productive fun, so it's a win.
Yeah, exactly. If you can, that's the perfect part of it. If you can be productive and fun at the same time, then nailed it. Alrighty, right. Well, I am going to let you go. I know I've said that about 46 times now, but it's been absolutely awesome chatting to you and learning more about both yourself and the VTuber community as a whole. I think it's quite an exciting development. I think it's definitely going to be an interesting thing to watch over the coming years and see how it does progress. Especially
V-streaming in particular is going to be kind of the future, I think, of streaming, is, people having their digital self, because, I can insert myself into VR if I want, or just recently I can insert myself into a Skyrim mod if I want. So it's really cool. Kind of the future.
I'm not jealous at all. All right, that's it. Next time you all see me, my little character Neuro, she is female, and I can totally voice mod. So, actually, one final question, and you don't have to name any names, obviously, because they might be totally keeping this to a secret. Do you know of any VTubers that have more than one persona?
Yeah, there's a few who have they couldn't decide between which character they like better, so they have two or maybe three, and then they change it up via what they're feeling or what type of game they're playing. So it's kind of like a marker of, I'm playing a more violent game today, or I'm just going to do a just chatting stream today. So it kind of corresponds with their topic as well.
Okay.
Or they're just I feel like wearing a dress today, so then they use the one that's female.
What about
gender neutral with the dress?
In terms of different channels entirely? So a person, so that's one. I'm guessing that's a person that has different characters that they use on the same channel, right? That you've just mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, the reason I said I'm not naming any names because ultimately, I imagine with the streamer that's doing it on one channel, it's the same streamer, but I suppose VTubing really does lend itself to the ability to slap on a voice mod. You've got different hair. Hello.
Yes. So I can change whatever character I want, pretty much. I have different outfits. I can be a different persona.
Well, so no one's been able to do that on the podcast before, have they, people?
Just randomly changing it up. But I mean, yeah, so if I'm feeling one day extra goofy, I can be an extra goofy kind of person. This one is very popular lately. I can be a teeny little chippy person. So you can change it up with how you're feeling. Oh, I green screened my shot. I green screened my hoodie out. But yeah, so you can change it up with your mood, or just kind of, if you're like, oh, I want to be maybe a guy today, or a floating head, or whatever, you can change it up. Awesome. And it's very neat.
Awesome. Right. Well, I'm super fascinated. I'm in. That next time you all see me, take one last look at this face, people, because I'm going to be this purple and green duck next time. It's actually not a bad idea.
If you like, you can be a duck if you like.
Dave's. I'm most of a duck. Just change one of the letters. Right. Thank you again. I will close the Zoom call and stuff, and I'll catch up with you later. It's been absolutely fantastic. Everybody.